Have you ever met one of those people who just seem to have this lucky energy? Like the rules don't apply to them. They have this magic touch and they can just get what they want in their lives, no matter the apparent circumstance or limitation. These people are tapped into what I call the invincibility frequency. This is a very high state of consciousness where they know the power of their energy, maybe unconsciously or consciously. And because they're prioritizing their state and their energy, they're able to manipulate the things around them to fall in line with that. Here's the thing. You cannot keep obeying reality and expect reality to obey you. So you're either prioritizing the physical world and circumstances around you, or you're prioritizing yourself and your state and your energy. How you begin tapping into the frequency of invincibility, and you create a frequency so strong that reality has to obey you, is you start prioritizing your energy over the material world. So your frequency, your state of consciousness, your energy, whatever you want to call it, it can essentially either be an invincibility cloak against external reality, so the lower vibrational stuff that doesn't resonate with you can't touch you, or it can be a magnet to the stuff that you don't want. You're the one who gets to decide that. And this is the power that your energy has. So I'm going to break down today a little bit about consciousness and your frequency, and then we're going to get into how you can actually generate a frequency that is essentially invincible against the lower dimensional things that you might be resisting, such as lack, limitation, fear-based ideas, and circumstances that you simply do not prefer. So technically, reality is already obeying you, but you're just unconscious of the energy that you're putting out that's manipulating the circumstances in the material world. Let me just break down to you what's happening. So you exist basically in a sea of infinite possibilities. This circle represents the entire universe. Yes, I know obviously it's not an accurate representation, but believe it or not, this is the entire universe for this example. So we basically exist in a field of infinite information and energy. And what we're perceiving physically with our five senses is less than 1%. That's kind of backwards. Less than 1% of what actually exists. So we see this in quantum mechanics. They call this the unified field. It's backed up by science. In Kabbalah, they call it, it's like beyond the veil. There's a 99% of unseen energies, right? And so essentially, we are having a very, very temporary, illusory experience that's based on our senses. So we're in these physical bodies having these experiences, but it's just one of many, many, many possibilities in the field of everything that exists. So everything in the universe is basically existing as different states, different forms of consciousness. You here having this experience, you're operating in a particular state of consciousness, and that is what's attracting and resonating certain possibilities with you rather than other possibilities. I want you to just really start thinking about this reality, this universe, as kind of just like this blank matrix, and you're existing in a certain area depending on the energetic frequency, the energetic identity that you are emitting. So you're always emitting this kind of frequency to the universe, and that is what's aligning circumstances, people, events, perceptions, intuitions, ideas with you. And if you think about somebody who has that kind of lucky energy, who just always gets what they want, they get everything handed to them, they always have things work out, what is the difference between you and them? Maybe they have different circumstances, but if you downloaded their consciousness into your body, you would have things work out in the same way that they do. So your physical body and your physical circumstances have nothing to do with it. It is all about your energy. It is all about your frequency. And if you want to move from a reality where you're experiencing a lot of lack, a lot of limitation, a lot of frustration, a lot of unwanted events and circumstances, then you have to move your energy first. And then the material world around you will shift to reflect that. The most important thing that you start getting into your head to start making reality obey you rather than the other way around is you have to really be intentional about what you're making important. And if you're making matter more important than your energy, you're always going to be a slave to physical reality, which is not the way things are designed to be. So most of us unconsciously end up obeying reality rather than having our reality obey us, because we allow ourselves to become programmed by the physical world. We allow our frequency to become programmed by the physical world and by our physical experiences that we've had in this lifetime so far. And so we perpetuate those experiences because it's resonant with our frequency. And we keep looking at reality and using that to basically dictate our energy and our state. And it keeps us in that feedback loop because then our state creates more of that experience for us, and so on and so forth. So in order to break out of this, and I've spoken about this time and time again, but in order to start breaking out of this, you have to break that feedback loop of, for example, I see lack, I feel lack. I see more lack, I feel more lack, I believe in more lack, I resonate with more lack, and then I see more lack. And so you stay around and around in this loop, and the only way you're going to break out of this loop is you have to start feeling, believing, and vibrating differently, and then you will start seeing differently. So rather than I see lack, I feel lack, you say I see lack, I decide to take my power back, and I decide to feel differently, believe differently, and vibrate differently. And then what you see will shift and change. Your frequency, energy, and vibration. Let's get this straight, first of all. That's the building blocks of our reality. I think Nikola Tesla said that. But the Hermetists talk about this too. So nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. That is a core Hermetic principle. Principle of vibration, the law of vibration. So you see this in science as well. Everything is made up of atoms. Atoms are basically vibrating. They're perpetual motion machines. They're vibrating in circular motion at all times. All the things that you're seeing in your physical reality are made up of particles that are vibrating. You are made up of atoms that are vibrating. Everything in this universe is basically just different forms of consciousness vibrating at different rates, i.e. different frequencies. So the rate of vibration of something is called a frequency. A frequency is essentially, in matter how fast or how slow something is vibrating. So when we look at, and the Hermetics speak about this, when we look about the entire universe and reality, we have kind of three planes of life. We exist on all three of these planes. We have the spiritual, the mental, and the physical plane. We exist on the spiritual plane because we are one with the divine. We are created and a fractal of source consciousness. So we're existing within the source consciousness. So we are part of it. We are a portion of it. So we are existing on the spiritual plane. This is the highest form of consciousness, okay? It's way beyond our senses. We cannot perceive it with our physical senses because it's the highest form of consciousness. Then we exist on the mental plane. So this is the plane of thought, belief, and mental imaging, things like that. So this plane essentially is like the middleman between the spiritual and the physical. And then the physical plane is matter. And that is the lowest form of consciousness. So all matter is, it's basically an aggregation of atoms vibrating in a particular frequency that is perceptible to our physical senses in this physical world. It's basically just, a combination of particles that are perceptible to our five senses. That's it. So when we touch something, force is generated because of the vibration of the thing that we're pushing against. Two things pushing against each other, that's creating force. Our eyes are perceiving like 0.0035% of the electromagnetic spectrum of light. So we're perceiving certain rays of light through our eyes, and then it's processed through our retina, and then that creates what we see. But that's also filtered through our mental portal. So the book that kind of started breaking my brain about this and started me on like a whole spiritual awakening and questioning what reality was, it's a book called Biocentrism, where essentially your whole reality is based on your experience of your senses, okay? So you're just basically perceiving information through your senses, and then that's what we call matter, and that's what we call reality. But as I mentioned a minute ago, it's less than 1% of